As you've kind of grown and been able to meet new people and work with new directors and work alongside great DPs as well and be able to study under some amazing people, what are some like characteristics of a DP that you maybe never thought of as being like a very important part of that role?
Well, early on, I had a really, I was very fortunate to have a kind of mentorship, internship situation with Reed Morano. She was kind of my first,
Wow.
like, big professional cinematographer that I had a chance to work with and learn from. And this was back when I was in film school. So this was like, I basically interned on a couple of her shoots
That's amazing.
as a camera PA. This was my first exposure to any professional shoot, and this was also before she was famous. So
Okay.
she was doing like these pretty scrappy indie films in New York, and I was there like running cable, BNC cable for Video Village, and fetching batteries from the truck and all this stuff.
Love it.
Anyway, working with her, I remember something she said pretty early on that like stuck with me to this day, which is that she was like, especially seeing her navigate sometimes like quite challenging circumstances on these shoots, these indie shoots. And she was like, one really important thing to understand right off the bat is that cinematography is one third art, craft, like the actual
Hmm.
cinematography side of it all. And then it's one third technical. Uh, and then it's one third psychiatrist, diplomat, uh, you know, confidant, like best friend, shoulder to cry on. Like a big part, almost nearly half of the job really is like dealing with people.
Mm.
And you have to deal with people in different ways. Like you have to be an ally for your director. You have to be their confidant, their psychiatrist, their shoulder to cry on. But you also have to be a diplomat. You have to be like a skilled negotiator. You have to be um, sometimes, a little aggressive or not,
Mm.
like depending on who you're dealing with when you're dealing with ADs and production and all the other infrastructure of a shoot. And I think in film school at the time, like that's not something I thought about because I was like 100% focused on the technical and the
Yeah, the
creative,
craft
like
kind of.
those
Yeah.
those two sides. Yeah, the craft and both, in its artistic expression and in its technical expression.
Mm.
But then seeing these professional shoots and seeing all these scenarios and situations that Reed had to navigate to deal with people, and that was really eye opening. I think early on to be like, oh wow, there really is a whole other side of this that you can't really
Mm.
discount.
Did it
Um,
initially scare you?
is Well, any human interaction is
Yeah.
scary to anybody, I think, unless you're like naturally an extrovert,
Right.
which most cinematographers are not. That's why we're behind the camera.
True.
But
Yeah.
it's a skill set I feel like you just have to pick up on, like, as time goes on. It just becomes a part of it and becomes a part of the process. But I do think, and again, I do see in other people, like when they're starting out, again, that crippling self doubt and all of that. I also see like a lack of self confidence in human interaction and like how you
Mm.
present yourself to a producer or
Mhm.
whatever and advocate for yourself or your crew or whatever it is. And that's okay. Like, I think that's natural early on, but that is something that's worth like focusing on and being deliberate about developing, because I do think that is a huge part of like building a successful cinematography career. I mean, it's politics. Like there's a
Right.
whole side of it that's politics, that is being a politician and learning how to communicate with people, how to advocate for yourself, how to
Mm.
sell things, how to convince people to do stuff. Like it's a whole side of it, and I think it is really crucial. So yeah, and I've certainly seen that manifest in some of the other people I've worked with and also in my own career. So yeah.
Once you started your journey into cinematography compared to where you are now, has your passion for it wavered in any way? Have there been moments in your journey where you're like, maybe this isn't for me? But like towards, I mean, I guess where you're at now, like how much of your passion for cinematography has stayed the same, increased, or kind of like went down as you've potentially gone through different phases of the career?
Honestly, it stayed the same.
Mm,
And I think that's key to answering the kind of self-doubt question, because that's kind of like whenever I'm faced personally with this internal question, and whenever other people ask me for advice, like on this question of what do I do? I'm feeling stuck. I'm not sure I'm going to, succeed, or I'm not sure I'm going to be able to make it, or do pursue this career in the way that I imagined or envisioned for myself. And it's really difficult and hard, and finding the opportunities and pushing through the moments of difficulty and self doubt. And the thing that I always go back to is this, and I go back to this with myself, and this is what I recommend other people do, is you have to really sit with yourself and ask, like, okay, if I'm really being honest with myself, could I live if I gave up, if I stopped
mm,
because it was too hard and went to do something else, can I live with that? Like, would that feel like a relief, or would that feel like worse?
right.
And if the answer is worse, if the answer is like, I just can't let go of this, I can't see myself, feel, imagine myself not doing this,
Mm,
then that's the answer. And that is how I've felt about it the whole time. I just, like, my passion for it and love of the art form and interest and love of pursuing this and drive and ambition has never let up at any point.
mm,
And so I think that that's the answer to myself. Like, whenever I'm faced with that same question, um, and I think it is worth checking in, on yourself
right.
to make sure that that passion is still there. But for me, it never went away, and I think that's probably why I kept going and
Right.
got to where I am now.
That's kind of like part of that first part of like having like that undeniable self-belief that you're going to make it regardless of what happens.
Yeah, and the flip side of it is also, it's not even that self belief. It's also this, like, okay, well, but if I flip it on its head and look at it from the other direction, I'm like, what can I do? Like,
Mm,
I can't see myself not doing this.
right.
So I really have no choice but to keep going. Like, even if
Yeah.
I don't have that self belief, it's like, it doesn't matter, because
Mm.
what's the alternative? There isn't one. I can't imagine one for myself. So onwards we go. Like, but that's basically how it's going.